In recent years, there's been this interesting debate going on. Was Duck secretly the villain of Duck and the Diesel Engine? Was Diesel simply trying to just make a good impression, and Duck ruined his chances because of his own prejudice? I find it very intriguing that people think Duck was the villain, or even that Duck was just as bad as Diesel. But today, I'm going to try and understand why people think like this. So let's begin at the beginning. The first story is Domeless Engines. Now you may be wondering how this ties in with Duck and the Diesel Engine. You may ask, why is this pointless story in the same book? But here's the thing, it's not pointless. This story carefully sets up the following three. In this story, Duck meets his hero, City of Truro. This makes him very cocky and very self-assured. He becomes as bad as Gordon, both of them arguing about City of Truro. And of course Gordon, the proud LNER engine that he is, would scoff at City of Truro. And at the end of the story, when Gordon has lost his dome and returns to the shed, a voice from behind him mockingly repeats the remarks that Gordon made earlier.
"Never trust domeless engines," said a voice. "They aren't respectable."
And who was in the yard when he made those remarks? No one other than Duck. Okay, to be fair, it's not stated that it was Duck, but in the illustration, there's only Gordon and Duck, and in the text, he's only talking to Duck. Now, at the start of Pop Goes the Diesel, Duck is arrogant and boastful, and it's implied that this has been going on for quite a while, and the other engines are sick of this, and quite rightly so. This is where Diesel enters the picture, and the other engines are very happy that this new Diesel will finally put Duck in his place, or at least bring him down to earth a bit more. Now, to discuss Diesel, let's not get this twisted. He arrived with the intention to prove that diesels are in fact revolutionary. In his mind, he knew he was better, and both the railway and its controller needed to wake up and realise. But you see, Diesel is not clever. He's no mastermind, as we'll discuss later, but his attitude at first was quite smart. He was polite, but most importantly, he stroked the big engine's egos, automatically making the rather stuck-up big engines soften to this newcomer. Diesel, to everyone, just seems like a friendly chap wanting to make a good impression. Duck, though, is suspicious, and perhaps a bit threatened by this new form of traction. His suspicions are proved to be right, however, as soon as they're out of earshot of the sheds, his ego starts to show.
"Your worthy fat Sir Topham hat to you," ordered Duck. Diesel looked hurt.
You see that? He's already calling him the Fat Controller. He's showing that all he wants is to be part of the family. Now, Diesel does want to be on the railway, but he doesn't want to be part of the family because he sees himself as above these engines. Duck quickly shuts this down and Diesel looks hurt. Now, Diesel wasn't actually hurt by this. He was angered that his manipulation wasn't working on Duck like it did the others. All this acting hurt is just a means to an end for Diesel. However, Diesel still tries to prove that he's better than Duck. Diesel tries to pull a line of old trucks, and this is the main reason why people try and frame Duck as the villain. He played a trick on Diesel, but no he didn't. I think this is a case of people misunderstanding the text.
"Perhaps you could collect my trucks while I fetch Gordon's coaches."
Diesel shunts the trucks for Duck, and then does he decide to pull some old ones from a siding. Diesel doesn't know that these trucks are old, and to quote,
"They were old and empty. Clearly they had not been touched for a long time."
But Duck didn't plant them there to humiliate Diesel. It was Diesel's own stupidity that got him into this mess. Maybe if he'd actually paid more attention, he'd have realised that there was no point in trying to move the trucks. Duck after shunting Gordon's coaches, returns to the yard and pulls up on the next track along, but just enough so he's out of eye and earshot of Diesel while he's attempting to pull the trucks. After Diesel fails, Duck smugly runs around next to Diesel on the other side and collects the trucks that Diesel had already shunted earlier. Now, you may think Diesel's question,
"And I've taken all this trouble," he almost shrieked. "Why didn't you tell me?"
is perfectly valid, but Diesel had already shunted all the trucks that Duck needed. After that, he was just trying to show off, and Duck came back while Diesel was already trying to pull the trucks away. Now, to be fair to Diesel, maybe Duck could have told him when they got to the yard. But the thing is, Diesel was too busy boasting for Duck to say anything. Duck maybe could have said,
If you're Revo Thingamy, perhaps you could collect my trucks while I fetch Gordon's coaches.
but also remember not to touch the trucks that are obviously rusty and worn out. But Diesel had just said he knows everything, so to make such a claim, he must have some common sense. Was it a bit petty of Duck? Sure, but if Diesel had any common sense, he would have realised pretty quickly that the trucks were not going to move and should have gone to shunt some others. But because he was overconfident and wanted to show off how revolutionary he was, he decided to try and move them anyway. Obviously, it backfires, and instead of thinking, "Oh well, maybe I was just wrong," no, he doubles down and blames Duck for it. Now, this is where the cogs start turning in Diesel's brain. His later interaction with Duck and the big engines makes it very clear to Duck that no matter what feud the engines have, they never talk about it to the trucks. So what does Diesel do? Well, of course he tells the trucks, and of course he blames Duck. Much like he sweet-talked the big engines by talking about how famous they are, he sweet-talks the trucks by telling them how funny they are. And much like Twitter, the trucks love drama. They eat up the lies that Diesel spouts and they run with it. And as payment for Duck bumping them, of course they tell the big engines, who in response turn on Duck and block him out of the shed. So Diesel's plan did kind of succeed. But only kind of. Duck was only sent down the line a short way to Wellsworth. The Fat Controller was very understanding with the whole situation, hence why he doesn't send Duck off the island completely. He only sends him away to calm down tensions in the yard, as he knows if he'd have let Duck stay, the tensions would have just got worse. And the Fat Controller said he'd never believe Diesel, so without Duck to tell lies about, who would Diesel turn on next? Well, that ended up being Henry, and thankfully for Duck and the other engines, he ended up being found out. As interesting as it would have been, how he got found out isn't really the point of the story, or particularly relevant. People always like to say that Diesel was this evil mastermind, the puppet master pulling all the strings. Well, Diesel's plan was cruel and malicious, but in the end, it all came down to luck. Sure, it helped that the big engines had a feud with Duck at the time, but even that was lucky for Diesel, as if the big engines and Duck had had a healthy relationship, then they wouldn't have believed the trucks so easily, if at all. And they might have even become suspicious of Diesel. If the trucks had said, "Oh, it was Duck who said it, but it was Diesel who told us that Duck said it," perhaps that would have raised some suspicions. Diesel's plan had so many holes, and he got by on mostly luck. His whole nice guy facade was quite clever, but it didn't take long for Duck to see straight through it. Overall, Diesel is in fact quite the idiot. But the question still remains, why do people think Duck is the villain? I thought it would have been rather obvious to anyone who reads the books who the villain is, but maybe that's where the problem lies. People who read the books, or more accurately, people who haven't. Let's take a look at the TV series episode Pop Goes the Diesel. The problem starts sort of straight away, as Domeless Engines isn't in Series 2, so Duck being incredibly boastful has always just been his personality now, I guess. Again, this changes the story, because if you're introduced to Duck as always having been that way, then yeah, maybe he does deserve taking down a peg or two. But Duck isn't naturally boastful. He's proud of his heritage, but no more so than Gordon is. He became boastful because of City of Truro's visit, especially with Truro using language like "one of us." But back to the TV series episode. Duck arrives well before Diesel starts to pull the old trucks. Plenty of time for him to tell Diesel not to pull them, otherwise he'll make a fool of himself. But Duck says nothing. Then, when Diesel struggles, he just sits there in full view and laughs in Diesel's face while he's visibly struggling. Though unintentional, Duck is presented as a bit more spiteful. Though still not deserving of what Diesel did. Think all your friends just turning on you like that. Apart from Edward, who isn't much help in this situation because he's halfway across the island. Same rule applies for Percy because he was on the branch line. That's a horrible thing for anyone to have to go through. So to say Duck deserved it or was just as bad as Diesel to me just seems silly. So in conclusion, it's those damn TV series fans again. Gosh damn. I'm only joking, of course. But I do think this is a long-winded issue with the TV series making Diesel a softer, nicer character over time. So if you view those stories with the nicer CGI Diesel in mind, then you're thinking that Duck is just as bad as Diesel is a bit more justifiable. So, is Duck the villain? No, of course not. I could have told you that at the top of this video, but I wanted to go in depth and try to find out why people think like this, and also to disprove anyone who does. If you still think that Duck was just as bad as Diesel, well, I guess I can't change your mind. My advice? Go reread the books. Then come back and watch this video again. Win-win! Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. I personally really enjoyed talking about one of my favourite Railway series books. If you'd like more content like this, then please let me know, or heck, any video suggestions, put them down in the comments. I promise I see everyone. Well, that's it for me, and just remember, there's only two ways of doing things on this channel: the Railway series way, or the wrong way. And I'm a Railway series purist, so
We know it.
thank you all for watching everyone, and I'll see you later. But in the illustration, there's only Gordy. In this illustration. So, to summarise, Diesel always likes to say that